Hi.
Hi there, welcome back to English for Specific Purposes. We are your hosts. I am Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Miss Tatia. კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ჩვენს ტელესკოლაში. მე თათია ვარ, ეს კი დერილია. Now let's get started. Mr. Daryl, what is the topic of today's lesson?
Something I think kids would love very much.
I think that it will be interesting for everyone.
You're right. Technology. Who doesn't love technology?
Yes, technology is the topic of our lesson, and we are going to read a very interesting text, learn some vocabulary connected with technology, and I think that the lesson will be really, really interesting, right?
This whole lesson is done with technology, so we are very indebted to technology.
Yes. Okay, but before we start the lesson, I think that we have to look at our agenda.
You're right.
What do we have on our agenda today, Mr. Daryl?
Let's see now. We start with an introduction, which is a discussion that we normally have. We have our vocabulary list after that, then a reading text, as you mentioned, a grammar section, very important, followed by a summary and some homework.
გაკვეთილს შესავლით დავიწყებთ, როგორც ყოველთვის, შემდეგ შევისწავლით ახალ სიტყვებს, წავიკითხავთ ტექნოლოგიასთან დაკავშირებულ ტექსტს, შემდეგ განვიხილავთ გრამატიკას და გავაკეთებთ სავარჯიშოებს, შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ ჩვენს გაკვეთილს და დავასრულებთ საშინაო დავალებით.
And let's get started.
Now we are ready to start, right? Mr. Daryl, as we are going to talk about technology today, I want to discuss the following question. What is the most important technological achievement in the past 100 years?
Ooh, great question. I think there's quite a lot of choices. Why not pick what we're doing right now? I'd say television.
Yes.
Imagine how television has changed the entire world. We get our news, we used to get our news from television, we get our entertainment from television. Now maybe there's something else.
And for me, I think that the most important technological achievement is the introduction of internet.
Very good.
Because I think that it has changed the whole world. It has made the world into a small village. I think we can communicate with each other. We can see each other like one person might live in Georgia and the other might live in the United States, and there is no kind of barrier anymore, right? And I think that it has revolutionized the whole world and changed the whole world. So I would say that internet is the most important achievement.
I like the word you used, village, like a global village, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I think that we have to look at our first set of vocabulary related to technology. And the first word we have is revolutionize. Revolutionize is a verb. And in Georgian it means radikალურად გარდაქმნა. Okay, how would you define that word, Mr. Daryl?
It's a highly topical word, always. To be revolutionized, to revolutionize something, you change something completely so that it's maybe moving in a completely different direction.
Okay. So I think that internet has revolutionized the world.
Yes,
because it has changed the world.
It seems that every piece of technology that comes in revolutionizes the way we look at the world.
Okay, so revolutionize is a verb, and in Georgian it means radikალურად გარდაქმნა. And we have a very good example here. Newton's discoveries revolutionized physics.
Oh, it did it.
Okay. Now, what is the next word, Mr. Daryl?
The next word is a great adjective, cutting edge, cutting edge.
Cutting edge is an adjective, and in Georgian it means თანამედროვე, მოწინავე. How would you define that word in English, Mr. Daryl?
Yeah, it is a great word. Something that's very modern, the most newest shape or form of something, technology usually.
Yeah, as I know, it is very often used with technology, right?
Yeah.
And here we have an example. The company is using cutting-edge technology.
That means very modern technology.
Now, the next word we have is obsolete. Obsolete is an adjective, and in Georgian it means მოძველებული. Mr. Daryl, how would you define the word?
In a sense, this is kind of the opposite of the previous word, cutting edge. So we have cutting edge, very modern, obsolete, no longer modern or useful, in fact, and replaced by something newer.
Okay, and here we have an example. Gas lamps became obsolete when electric lighting was invented. Of course, no one is using gas lamps, right? So it's obsolete.
Yes. The last time it was in use was 100 years ago, probably.
Yeah. Mr. Derry, what is the next word?
It's a verb, and it's to navigate. To navigate.
To navigate is a verb, and in Georgian it means gzis monachva, web gwerdze modzraoba, navigacja.
Yeah, the English definition is, of course, it's used in the real world with ships, you navigate ships and so on, but in our context, in our technological context, it means moving around on websites, looking for things, looking for new websites and so on.
Okay, I often use this word when I want to find something on the website. So here we have an example. The site is well organized and easy to navigate, which is very important, okay?
It's always fun to use a website that's easy to navigate.
Yes, okay. And our new word is?
Labor saving, labor saving. It's an adjective.
Yes, labor saving is an adjective, and in Georgian it means shromis damzogweli, shemamsobukebeli. Oh, I like labor saving machines very much, okay?
Yeah.
So what is the definition of labor saving?
It's a machine or a way of doing things that saves you from extra work. Well, Ms. Tatia, what's your favorite labor saving machine?
My labor saving machine is a washing machine.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It saves much time. Okay, and here we have an example. When technology works, it's a wonderful labor-saving device. It turns out that we have finished the words, and now it's time to practice. As you know, it's my favorite part.
Yeah, yeah. You love the game of it.
Okay, so I think that you have to read the first statement, and I will guess which word would suit the gap.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, let's start.
What we are planning is something technology never seen in Georgia before.
Let me see. I think that the best word here would be cutting edge. And we have to check. And I was right. So what we are planning is cutting edge technology never seen in Georgia before. So that means that modern technology just will be implemented, right?
Yeah, something new, something exciting is coming into Georgia.
Yeah, okay. Now, I will read the statement and you will guess the word.
It's my turn? Okay.
It's your turn. So we need to replace some, then there is a blank space, and then we have the word equipment.
Well,
what do you think might?
The key word maybe is replace. So why would you replace something unless it was obsolete?
I think that you are right, but we have to check, and you're absolutely right. Obsolete equipment must be replaced.
Well, Ms. Tatia, I think it's your turn again.
Yeah, I'll try.
Here you go. Electronic cash systems have something, there's a blank here, the way people around the world pay for goods and services.
I think that it's something that has changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that here should go the verb revolutionized.
Yeah, you're right. That's perfectly correct. Revolutionize can be a word for change.
Yes, okay. And 2 words are left.
Mm-hmm.
So the task has become easier, I think. I will read the statement and you will guess the word. Today, we also depend on modern, then there is a blank space, devices like the washer and dryer to save us time. So I mentioned the washing machine.
You did. So
do you remember what kind of device is a washing machine?
You've made it easier for me.
Yeah.
I would go with labor-saving device.
And you're right. Labor-saving devices like washer, dryer, and they save us time.
They make it easier to do this work.
Yeah, you're right. And the final one, which is very easy to guess.
If the website of a company is easy to something, customers are satisfied.
Yes, if it is easy, if the website of a company is easy to navigate, the customers are satisfied. So I think that when you own a company, run a company, I think that you should pay attention to your website. It should be easy to navigate because then the customers will find it easy to find products on your website and they are likely to buy a lot of things on
They are. You might want to have like a special IT person focused on website development and website.
You definitely need to have one.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that we have finished with the first set of vocabulary and it's time to move on to reading. Mm-hmm. But before we move on to the reading part, as you know, we have to learn some words. to make it easier to understand the text, right?
Yeah, sometimes these texts are a little complicated. Better to have some advanced preparation.
Yes, okay, so let's prepare for the text. And let's look at our second set of vocabulary where we have the first word. And the first word is tuition. Tuition is a noun, and in Georgian it means savleba. So how would you define that word, Mr. Darrell?
A tuition is when you get special help in a university setting, in a small group or one-to-one. It's a kind of process of studying.
You're right. So tuition is a noun, and in Georgian it means savleba. And here we have an example. All students receive tuition in basic maths.
Oh, I need that.
Well, me too. Okay, Mr. Darrell, what is the next word we have?
We have a noun, and it is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity is a noun, and in Georgian it means kiberusabtkheba. How would you define that word in English, Mr. Darrell?
It's very important in a modern day of like cyber terrorism. And cybersecurity is to protect yourself, your company, or sometimes the government even protects its country's interests by having protection on internet services.
And it has become really, really important. So cybersecurity is a noun, and in Georgian it means kiberusabtkheba. And here we have an example. Ineffective cybersecurity and attacks on our informational infrastructure put our nation at risk.
Oh,
Serious stuff.
it's happening more and more these years, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. And our next word is cyber attack. Cyber attack is a noun, and in Georgian it means kibersheteva. Mr. Darrell, will you help me with the definition?
Yes, now this is exactly why you need cybersecurity to guard against a cyber attack. This is when some outside force tries to attack your internet space, takes information from you, something like that.
Okay. So cyber attack is a noun, and in Georgian it means kibersheteva. And here we have an example. For cybersecurity, a single cyber attack can degrade a control system in multiple ways.
Devastating, really dangerous.
Really dangerous. Okay, and what is the next word, Mr. Darrell?
Blended, it's an adjective, and it's blended. What is it in Georgian, Ms. Tatia?
Blended is an adjective, as Darrell said, and in Georgian it means shereuli. I have heard of blended studies very often. So what does it mean, Mr. Darrell?
This is when you mix several different things together so that it becomes one organized section or one organized part.
Okay, so blended is an adjective, and in Georgian it means shereuli. And here we have an example. Blended learning is a way of breaking down barriers to education.
So this is a good way to bring things together as opposed to what we were talking about earlier, cyber threat and cyber attacks and so on, where you're trying to split people apart.
Okay. And we have one more word. This is to diminish. To diminish is a verb, and in Georgian it means shemtsireba shesusteba. And how would you define that word, Mr. Darrell?
When you diminish something, you reduce it in size or in importance as well.
Okay. So to diminish is a verb, and in Georgian it means shemtsireba shesusteba. And here is an example. The threat of inflation is diminishing. That's a good thing, right? So when the threat is diminishing, it's good.
Yeah, when threats are being diminished, it is a good thing. Plus, we don't want to diminish the importance of study as well.
Yes, okay. And I think that we have to, before we read the text, we have to discuss a question. Mr. Darrell, what do you think? How will COVID-19 change the world?
Well, it is changing the way, in a positive way, it's changing the way we look at cleanliness. A lot more people are aware that they've got to wash their hands, that they've got to be careful where they go. And
so you're concentrating on positive things, right?
I think it's a good idea to focus on the positive.
Yes.
What about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. Yeah, of course, there are lots of negative things, but there are some positive things too, and I always like to see some positive in everything. So I think that just, first of all, we have learned a lot about technology.
Mm-hmm.
and we have been using it more and integrating it in our everyday life, which have made things easier. So I think that technology will be more involved in our life than it used to be. And that way I think that the life will be changed.
Mm-hmm. This is the year, for example, that I learned a lot about online teaching and so on.
Yes, that's the same here. Okay, now I think that it's time to read the text and find out very interesting information. Okay? The creators of executive education courses always try to make their offerings relevant to current business needs. The coronavirus crisis has sparked a wave of new programs focusing on leadership in a crisis, for example. But even before the pandemic, there was another strong trend: the teaching of digital knowledge and skills around subjects such as artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Now, as the world has gone into lockdown to tackle COVID-19, and working online from home is commonplace, an understanding of the digital world has become more important. Meanwhile, schools are also rethinking how to develop and expand remote tuition.
So one of the things that have been changed is education.
Yes.
Imperial College Business School is prominent among those embracing the trend. One example is a Cybersecurity for Executives program that teaches participants how they can implement better safeguards for IT networks, ways to protect against and handle cyber attacks, and the threats to businesses if they do suffer such an event. Imperial also runs courses in artificial intelligence and the evolution of financial technology startups, or fintechs, both of which have proved popular. In Barcelona, IESE Business School this year launched a 3-day course combining teaching on artificial intelligence with its Future of Management initiative, a multidisciplinary project that will look at how AI affects leadership. The focus is on ethics, with tutors designing their teaching to prepare executives to put AI to use in their companies in a socially responsible way.
Very interesting part. So tutors everywhere now have to think about how they teach online. For courses already focused on tech, the hope is that such distance learning will be a good fit with target audiences. A 2018 study of managers by the Triumph Executive MBA found that 2/3 of prospective learners on executive education courses wanted some online learning in the teaching offered, double the number 5 years earlier. Schools are starting to rethink their digital courses to adjust for this new world. Even after the global coronavirus crisis is hopefully diminished and classes can resume in person, we will have transformed our way of thinking about teaching online. Staff, professors, and students will most likely to be much more willing and open to blended and online formats as a result of this. Once you get over the fear and hurdles of delivering online, you also see that many benefits.
Really, what we're talking about is a revolution in education.
Yes, and I think that the most affected area was education, I think, during COVID-19.
Yeah.
So it has changed and revolutionized the whole learning system and education system, right?
Yeah, it could be a chance for great excitement.
Yes, and I think that we have to try to find out how well we remember the text, right? For this, we have an exercise. We will see the statements and we have to decide whether the statements are true or false.
Your favorite part.
Yeah. Okay, so the first statement, Mr. Daryl.
Here we go. Before the COVID-19 crisis, there was very little interest in learning about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Do you remember that was true or false?
Okay, I'll try to remember. I think that is true, but I'm not sure. No, it's false. So why is it false? Let me check. So we read, but even before pandemic, there was another strong trend, the teaching of digital knowledge and skills around subjects such as artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So it means that it was even before the pandemic, right?
You're right, yeah. So it was an interesting topic even before the pandemic.
Yes, okay. Now the next one, I'll read the statement for you and you are going to guess. So, ESA Business School's course on artificial intelligence and leadership helps prepare executives to make good ethical decisions concerning the use of AI in their company.
Well, Ms. Tatya, I do recall reading that myself, that part, and I think the answer is true.
And you're right, because we read. So the focus is on ethics, with tutors designing their teaching to prepare executives to put AI to use in their companies in a socially responsible way.
You know, it's a creative time with all this change as well. Now, more than half of managers who plan to take a course want to do some of it online. Do you recall that being true or not?
I think that this is true. And yes, I'm right.
Very good.
And we read a 2018 study of managers by the Triumph Executive MBA found that 2/3 of prospective learners on executive education courses wanted some online learning in the teaching offered. And I think that we have finished with reading, and it's time for grammar. And what is the topic of our grammar today?
We're looking at passive construction in sentences.
Okay, so we are going to revise passive, yes? Okay. Now, when do we generally use passive voice?
When do we?
We use passive voice when we don't know who did or does something, when it's not obvious who does or did something, when it's not important who does or did something, or when we want to emphasize new information or use a formal style. And just as we know, there are all the tenses in passive voice as we have in active voice. Okay, today we will concentrate on some of them. So let's talk about present continuous passive. How do we generally form present continuous passive, Mr. Darrell?
Well, shall I give you the active example first?
Yes, please.
So an active example, just to give you the contrast, would be they are redecorating the office.
So they,
Yeah.
this is the subject. They are the doers of the action, so it's at the beginning of the sentence. So how would it be in passive voice?
Now, the office is being redecorated.
At the moment, right? So we don't know who is doing it, but we know that the action is going on, right?
Yes.
And what is the form? So for present continuous passive, we need verb to be, am, is, are, plus being, plus past participle. Now let's talk about past continuous passive. Can you give us an example of active and passive construction?
Sure, that would be great for comparison purposes. Here's the active sentence now with the subject, with the doer. We asked for coffee while they were preparing the bill.
That's right. And how will it be in passive?
We asked for coffee while the bill was being prepared.
Again, we don't know who was preparing the bill, but the process was going on, right?
Yeah. In the first sentence, we knew it was they, a certain them, but now we don't really need to know that.
Okay, and what about the form? For past continuous passive, we need verb to be again in past form, was or were, plus being, plus past participle. So generally, we don't normally use verbs in the passive in present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future continuous, or future perfect continuous tenses. Instead, we use a different phrase. And here is an example. The restaurant has been under construction for 4 years. Instead of saying the restaurant has been being built for 4 years. So we would never say this.
Plus, it's kind of difficult to say all those buzz in a row. Has been being built.
Okay, so it's a wrong sentence.
Yeah.
We would never use it. So we would say the restaurant has been under construction for 4 years. And I think that we have finished with the theoretical part, and it's time to practice. Okay, we've got the prompts, and we have to make up sentences using the passive. Okay, so the first one is our car then served a mechanic at the moment. So the action is going on at the moment. Okay, so how would you say it?
Our car is being served by a mechanic at the moment.
Yes, you're right.
Let's go to the next one. So
Okay, I'll try.
2 men question at this moment.
Okay, again, it's going on at the moment. So I would say the sentence like this: 2 men are being questioned at the moment, but we don't know who is questioning them. We know that the process is going on, right?
Could be police.
Yeah, it's quite obvious, I think, right? That's why we use passive voice here.
Could be gangsters.
Yeah, okay. Well, and the next one is when we enter then the computer lab, Windows, and install.
I like
So
that.
it should be about past, I think. So in a past moment, in a specific past moment, an action was going on, I think, right? But we don't know who did the action. So I would say the sentence like this: when we enter the computer lab, Windows was being installed, right?
Yes, you're
I
right.
think that we have finished with the exercise, and I think that you have to wrap up the lesson, right?
Let's do it. We had vocabulary in the beginning, we had the reading text, and we finished with grammar on the passive construction, several of them.
You're right. მოდი გაკვეთილი შევაჭამოთ. გაკვეთილის დასაწყისში გავიცანით ახალ სიტყვებს, შემდეგ წავიკითხეთ ტექსტი ტექნოლოგიებზე, შემდეგ გავიმეორეთ გრამატიკა, ბნებითი გვარი და ეხლა დროსაშინაო დავალებას გადავიდეთ. Let's move on to the homework. What will be the homework for today, Mr. Gerald?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Write a paragraph about an invention that revolutionized the world. I think this can bring up a whole bunch of different
Ideas.
cool answers.
Yeah, I think so. So we are looking forward to the answers, right? So, but where can the homework be uploaded, Mr. Gerald?
Good question. They can do that at the address you see on the screen right now.
Oh, that's very interesting. So let's wait for the answers. And I think that it's time to finish the lesson and say goodbye to the viewers.
Yes, and we will see them again through the magic of television, I think.
Yes, with a lot of interesting topics
Yeah.
ahead, right? So goodbye and stay with us and keep on learning.
Goodbye, and until next time.